Before we get into the video, could everyone please subscribe to my Endless Diary Tales channel? Thank you so much. In my previous life, my fiancé, Major Ethan Cole, sacrificed his life for the country. Around the same time, my younger sister, Mia, mysteriously went missing. I had to carry the burden of both families alone, living under the pitying stares of everyone for 3 years. That felt like 3 centuries. I never imagined that 3 years later, the Major who had been declared dead would return alive. And beside him was my sister, Mia, pregnant. That was when I learned that his so-called sacrifice had actually been an undercover mission and Mia had been his closest partner. They became a heroic couple praised by everyone. My parents forced me to call off the engagement, saying I couldn't ruin my sister's happiness. His parents mocked me for being useless and told me not to show my face and embarrass them. Then crazed fans of that heroic couple stabbed me in the middle of the street. I bled to death with no one coming to save me. When I opened my eyes again, I had returned to the exact day Ethan was declared a martyr. This time I no longer carried the weight of both families. I donated all my savings to the families of fallen soldiers and went to live in a temple, chanting prayers for Ethan's next life. People online called me kind and loyal. On the day they returned, I ran barefoot from the mountain down to the military housing complex, blood soaking the ground beneath my feet. The moment I saw my pregnant sister holding Ethan's hand, I spat out a mouthful of fresh blood. A slap like a blow from the heavens struck my face, snapping me out of the misery of my previous life. Seeing everything clearly now, I had to force myself to hide the joy rising inside me. I had been reborn. Right now Mia is missing, and my father keeps warning me, terrified I'll ruin her bright future. She's your sister. She's missing and you're making a big scene looking for her. What if something happens and ruins her reputation? If you dare cause trouble, don't call me your father again. Seeing their guilty expressions, I knew they already knew exactly where Mia had gone. Mia was the daughter my father had with his mistress, half a year younger than me. My mother died of postpartum hemorrhage after giving birth to me, leaving me alone. Right after she passed, my father hurriedly brought his mistress into the house and even held their wedding on the 7th day after my mother's death. It turned out he had been secretly involved with that woman all along, and she had already been pregnant on the wedding day. But I had been too young to change anything. I was the daughter of the first wife. Yet I lived worse than a dog in that house. My stepmother tormented me, and all I ever wished for was freedom to escape that family. Ethan Cole had been betrothed to me since childhood. Thanks to my mother's connection with the Cole family, we were practically childhood sweethearts. When we were young, he often protected me and comforted me, and I saw him as my light and my only support. In my previous life, Mia secretly followed Ethan to the border, and constantly fought alongside him through life and death. 3 years later, Ethan led his team to complete a top-secret mission, destroying a foreign infiltration plan and successfully protecting the border. He received the First-Class Medal of Honor, was promoted to general, and brought Mia, pregnant, back with him. At the press conference he recounted the hardships of those 3 years, saying Mia had been by his side the entire time, saving him again and again, sharing life and death battles with him. He praised her as a brave heroine, saying that without her, General Ethan Cole would not have returned whole. Everyone was moved by their story and celebrated them as a heroic couple. And just like that, I became the vicious, delusional woman who didn't know her place and tried to force myself between their so-called life and death bond. Everyone said Ethan was about to marry Mia, but I refused to believe it. He was my fiancé. We had promised each other that once he returned from his mission, we would get married. Before all that, Mia always relied on our parents' favoritism. Every time Ethan came to visit me, she deliberately stirred up trouble to separate us. Ethan had clearly told me he hated people who tried to sow discord. Yet, she later became the woman he praised above everyone else. I didn't trust anyone else. In the heavy rain pouring down like a waterfall and ignoring the judgmental looks around me, I stubbornly stood waiting in front of the military base gate, hoping Ethan would give me an explanation. He said, "Lisa, I'm not holding the past against you only because Mia is gentle and has always seen you as her sister. She told me not to argue with you. If you hadn't always gotten in the way, why would Mia and I have wasted so many years like that?" His eyes were as cold as ice, chilling my heart to the core. I couldn't say a single word. He shoved me aside and strode off. You don't deserve to be my fiancé. I was already shivering from the rain. And when he pushed me, I fell straight onto the muddy ground. As I struggled to get up, I saw Mia leaning into his arms, smiling triumphantly. At that moment, something in me completely died. When I returned home, what greeted me was my father's rage. How did I end up raising such a shameless daughter like you? You're not even worth one fingertip of Mia. How dare you dream about stealing her man? News of Ethan publicly humiliating me spread rapidly, and rumors erupted everywhere. People said I must have done something terribly wrong. Otherwise, why would Ethan be so decisive? Even my own father was praised as a righteous man, willing to condemn his own daughter for the greater good. Overnight, everyone seemed to forget that I was the one who had been engaged to Ethan in the first place. Now, unlike in my previous life, I didn't argue about right or wrong, nor did I mention anything about calling the police to look for my sister. I simply nodded and accepted my father's demands. I lowered my head and softly replied about Mia's disappearance. I won't say another word about it. My father smiled in satisfaction. Just stay home and behave. Don't cause more trouble. My stepmother snorted beside him. If you were even half as sensible as your sister, your father and I wouldn't have to worry so much. The next day was my birthday. My father never liked me, but in front of guests, he didn't dare be too harsh. My stepmother had no interest in attending my birthday at all. She casually made up some excuse and slipped back to her room early. Surrounded by guests, I handled everything politely, and the party atmosphere was lively until Mia's maid, Annie, burst in crying. Something terrible happened. The young lady is missing. An unmarried girl suddenly disappearing was a serious matter. Everyone's expressions changed instantly. Their eyes filled with suspicion. I personally helped Annie up and calmly asked, "What happened? I thought your young lady said she wasn't feeling well and was resting in her room." Annie wiped her tears. "A few days ago, the young ladies told me they wanted to go out and relax, but they were afraid the master would scold them. So they told me to dress in her clothes and pretend to be sick in bed. But now, the day they were supposed to come back has already passed, and there's still no sign of her. What am I supposed to do if something happened to her?" Annie's eyes were red as she spoke, repeatedly bowing in panic. Her forehead was already bleeding, yet she didn't even notice. She truly looked like a loyal servant worried for her mistress. She described in detail how Mia went missing. Even though Annie had made mistakes, she was only a servant who would dare disobey their master's orders. But just as she finished saying everything she should and shouldn't have said, an angry voice roared from the doorway. "You worthless girl! How dare you spout nonsense? Drag her out of here!" My stepmother came rushing in, clearly having hurried over the moment she heard the news. But before she could continue, Mrs. Warren, the wife of a high-ranking officer, frowned. "What kind of behavior is this? It's her birthday and yet you're shouting and hitting people. That's completely inappropriate." My stepmother, who always acted tyrannically at home, immediately froze and fell silent in front of someone with real status. I gently wiped the tears from the corners of Annie's eyes and spoke softly. "A young lady's reputation is extremely important. You need to tell the truth. Where exactly did she go? Don't say anything reckless." Annie lowered her head, her voice soft but perfectly clear. "I really don't know anything else. All I know is that before leaving, the young lady went to the bank to withdraw some cash. She said the place she was going wouldn't allow mobile payments. We agreed on the day she'd be back, but it's already been several days, and she still hasn't returned. I'm afraid something terrible may have happened to her." My stepmother clenched her hand so tightly that her fingernails were nearly digging into her palms. "Mia said she'd be back by." She stopped mid-sentence, realizing what she had just blurted out, and quickly corrected herself. "Either way, Mia will definitely be fine. Stop talking nonsense." But with just that half-slipped sentence, anyone present who wasn't blind could tell something was wrong. Under the probing stares of the guests, my stepmother grew so flustered she couldn't string together a coherent response, her eyes turning red from panic. Of course, she couldn't understand why Annie, who had always been fiercely loyal to Mia, would suddenly betray her. In my previous life, Annie had obediently impersonated Mia for 3 whole years in a house on the outskirts of town without revealing a single flaw. Truly, being reborn had its advantages. Back then, when I was stabbed by fans of that so-called heroic couple and lay on the street writhing in agony, Mia stroked her pregnant belly and laughed as she said, "Sis, you look just like Annie when she died. Didn't she die horribly like this too? Oh, right before she died, she begged me to take care of her sick old mother. Isn't that funny? As if I'd help. That old woman probably died rotting alone in her filthy little rental room, her body nearly decomposed. Because of that, in this life, I had already brought Annie's sick mother to the apartment I rented and hired someone to take proper care of her. Before my stepmother could object, I pulled her toward Mia's room. Mia, you're the older sister. How can you ignore your siblings' safety? We need to check her room immediately. There might be clues." In reality, Mia had already followed Ethan's team to the border long ago. Naturally, no one was in the room. But when everyone entered and saw the walls covered with photos of Ethan and poorly hidden love letters stuffed into the drawer, their eyes began subtly shifting toward me. I forced a strange smile, but the shock in my eyes was impossible to hide. "Mia is my younger sister," I said softly. "She knows Ethan, so exchanging letters isn't strange." Everyone looked at me with awkward pity, clearly thinking, is she really this naive or just pretending? I was still trying to maintain my composure when someone from the front yard came running in, shouting in panic, "Bad news, terrible news. Major Cole has died in action. The military just sent urgent notification." My body, already exhausted, immediately collapsed to the ground. Disbelief washed over me. How? How could this happen? Ethan, what happened to him? My best friend Tracy hurried forward to support me. "Lisa, I'm so sorry." Leaning against Tracy's shoulder, I quietly observed the room. Everyone wore expressions of false sympathy, even though they were really just waiting to see me break down. Ethan Cole was the youngest major in the military. Handsome, capable, admired. He and I were childhood sweethearts, engaged since we were small. So many people had envied me. Now, hearing the news of his death, they were eager to watch me fall apart. In my previous life, when I learned he had died, my heart felt like it was being carved open with a knife. But I still forced myself to stay strong in front of everyone, afraid of being judged. I politely received every person who came to offer condolences, terrified of being called weak. But when they all left, I cried alone into my pillow until I fainted, only to be later slandered as cold and heartless, accused of not shedding a single tear for my fiancé. This time I didn't need to pretend. I clung to Tracy and cried until my heart felt like it was splitting apart. How did it end up like this? My sister is missing and Ethan is gone too. Why was it that everyone I cared about left me one by one? The moment those words left my lips, the entire room erupted. People immediately began whispering among themselves. How could this be a coincidence? What if Mia ran away with Major Cole? Oh my God, that would be shameless. Even if they're not blood sisters, how could she steal her sister's fiancé? But I acted as if I heard nothing. I just lowered my head and sobbed as though I were drowning in grief. I said, "Ethan and I once promised each other that after he completed his mission, we'd go see the ocean together and live a peaceful life for the rest of our days. If he's gone, what meaning does my life even have? I'd rather follow him than stay here alone." I cried so hard it felt like my soul was being wrung out, tears falling like a relentless storm. The guests, who had only come out of curiosity, eager for gossip, gradually became absorbed in the tragic scene before them. Slowly, they genuinely began to pity me. Seeing the timing was perfect, I bit the inside of my cheek with all my strength. A metallic taste of blood quickly filled my mouth. It hurt. Of course it hurt. But compared to being stabbed to death in the middle of the street in my previous life, it was nothing. News that the eldest daughter of the Tate family, Lisa Tate, had coughed up blood and fainted from heartbreak over her fiancé's death spread rapidly through the upper class. People began talking, saying that the bond between us was so deep, it moved them to sorrow. At the same time, talk of Mia's disappearance surged as well. Some claimed she'd been kidnapped. Others rumored she had eloped with someone. Even the police came to ask questions. But regardless of the version circulating, her reputation was ruined. Wasn't Mia always pretending to be pure, playing the role of the sweet, innocent girl? I truly wanted to see whether she would still be treated like a treasure once her bad reputation spread. Didn't Ethan love when people praised the life and death bond between him and Mia? Well then, if their great love turned into a scandalous, nameless escape, would it still be considered sacred? This was the first gift I sent to the two of them. I hoped that somewhere out on the distant border, Mia and Ethan would enjoy it. The city had just seen a heavy snowfall. I wore simple clothes with no makeup, smiling gently as I handed a bowl of hot porridge to an elderly sanitation worker. "Sir, please have some warm porridge. You look touched." "Thank you. You're such a kind girl looking for a missing fiancé and sister, yet still doing good deeds. You have a good heart to pray for Ethan and Mia." I had volunteered at the temple for 3 years, helping people in difficult circumstances. At first, everyone thought I was putting on an act to gain sympathy, but as the years passed, they slowly realized I was sincere. Now no one dared say a bad word about me. Everyone knew I was loyal and faithful to my fallen fiancé. Even the older officials who had been acquainted with the Cole family praised me as a rare woman in this era, an example for the entire city. I lifted my head and looked toward the high sun, silently calculating. They should be returning soon, and my plan had only just begun. Just then someone ran toward me from afar, calling urgently, "Lisa, Major Cole isn't dead. He completed his mission. He's at the military base gate right now." The ladle I was holding slipped from my hand and clattered onto the ground. No one around seemed to notice. Everyone was too busy rejoicing on my behalf. Heavens, I had finally been blessed. All my prayers and good deeds these 3 years weren't in vain. If Major Cole marries you, it'll be his fortune for 3 lifetimes. This is wonderful. Finally, a perfect ending. My face clearly showed 3 parts disbelief and 3 parts joy mixed with resentment. I didn't even have time to fix my clothes before I turned and ran straight toward the military base gate. My shoes fell off, but I didn't care. Sharp stones cut into the soles of my feet until blood spilled out, leaving a trail of deep red footprints across the white snow. Anyone who saw that scene would have praised me as truly devoted. But when I finally saw Ethan, Mia was in his arms, her belly already huge, and his eyes were full of tenderness as he looked at her. My entire body froze. He walked toward me, frowned, and looked me up and down with a cold, disgusted voice. "You ran here looking like this, dressed so sloppily. You don't look like a woman at all." I bit my lips so hard I almost drew blood, unable to say anything. My body trembled and I nearly collapsed. The expressions of the people around us changed immediately as they looked at Ethan. She had prayed for him for 3 years, worried for 3 years, and ran barefoot to see him. If he didn't appreciate it, fine. But to call her ugly? Ethan was still lost in his heroic return from war glow, completely unaware of how cold people's eyes had become toward him. With casual confidence he said, "In the past, I let things go because of Mia, but in this life I will only marry one person, and that's Mia." Mia timidly peeked out from his arms and spoke in a weak voice. "Lisa, Ethan and I truly love each other. Please give us your blessing." I felt like a soulless shell as I slowly reached out my hand, wanting to touch Ethan's arm just to confirm whether what I was seeing was real. But he immediately stepped back, his eyes filled with pure disgust. "Only Mia gets to touch me. You think you deserve that? If you take another step forward, don't blame me for turning on you." His voice was icy, hard as frozen steel. He looked at me with absolutely no warmth, as though I were a stranger or an enemy. Mia shrank into his arms again. She mouthed an apology, but her eyes were full of provocation. "Don't be upset, sis. Ethan just cares too much about me and couldn't control his emotions. Please don't take it to heart." I ignored her entirely and clutched my chest, murmuring softly, "It's fine. It's fine as long as you're both okay." My voice wasn't loud but enough for everyone to hear. Suddenly, I coughed up a mouthful of blood. My vision darkened and I nearly collapsed. Just at that moment, a high-ranking general who had arrived from the southwest, General West, stepped forward and caught me. I lowered my head slightly, letting a single tear fall perfectly as I struggled to stand. I pulled out a handkerchief and gently wiped the blood from my lips. "Thank you, General. But men and women should keep proper distance. I'm fine. You don't have to support me." Weak, innocent, yet with a quiet strength deep in my bones. Who wouldn't soften at the sight? General West's gaze on me changed immediately, now filled with sympathy. I understood very clearly. Once a man begins to feel pity for a woman, everything becomes much easier. I had rehearsed this performance in my head for 3 years, and today I finally executed it flawlessly. With my family background, marrying into a powerful household wasn't easy. But in these 3 years I had built a sterling reputation. And now, with General West's particular attention, everything began to shift. Everyone now stood on my side. If the general chose to help me, not only would it show that he valued good people, it would earn him enormous goodwill from the public. And Ethan Cole, what was he worth? I never hoped he'd regret anything. What I wanted was a future far better than anything he could ever have given me. At that moment, Ethan was acting exactly like he had in my previous life. Ethan held Mia's hand as he told everyone about the 3 difficult years they spent at the border and spoke proudly about their great love. But he didn't notice how the way people looked at him had completely changed. Yes, Ethan had earned military merit and was considered a hero. But abandoning his fiancée to sleep with her sister, and even getting her pregnant, was also a fact. A man who couldn't even uphold the most basic morality. Did he deserve to be called a hero? Meanwhile, I was the one who was innocent, the one who deserved sympathy the most. I looked at Ethan, my voice soft but filled with endurance. If you say you truly love each other, then what about me? What do the 3 years I waited for you mean to you? Ethan shot me a disdainful glance. Lisa Tate, ask yourself, did you ever love me sincerely? What you loved was my rank as a major, the status of my family. I was at the border for 3 years. Did you ever try to find me? Only Mia risked everything to come to me and suffer by my side. You lived comfortably in the city while Mia endured the wind and sun with me. How could you ever compare to her? That engagement was just something our families casually joked about when we were kids. How could you take it seriously? He paused, then looked at me with the eyes of someone handing out charity. I'm not heartless. If you really have nowhere to go, you can follow me in the future and be her nanny. I'll take care of you. Status doesn't matter. The most important thing is love. Didn't you say that to me before? I reminded him quietly. He had said those exact words once when he was punished for making a mistake during a mission, and wanted to break off the engagement to avoid harming me. I had held his hand back then, comforting him with those same words. But now, hearing them again felt so painfully ironic, I could barely breathe. Ethan truly believed I loved him so much that I would willingly become a nanny for the woman who stole him. After saying his piece, he didn't bother looking at me again. Instead, he looked at General West, young, high-ranking, respected, with an air of smug superiority. Of course, men were always arrogant when multiple women were involved in their drama. I saw General West frown slightly. I understood immediately, even if he had begun to feel sympathy for me, given his status, openly showing concern for a woman whom Ethan had just belittled and compared to a nanny would cause endless gossip. Then in that moment of silence a sharp crack echoed. I threw the old fountain pen, the engagement token Ethan once gave me, straight onto the ground. It shattered between us into pieces. Like this broken pen, I would rather shatter like jade than stay whole like worthless clay. My attitude had never been clearer. There was nothing left between Ethan and me. Lisa Tate was born with dignity. I would rather die than cling pathetically to someone who despised me. If he dared insult me like that, I would rather end it all. Before anyone could react, I spun around and threw myself headfirst into the stone pillar at the military gate. My forehead split open instantly. Hot blood ran down into my eyes until everything blurred red. Through the haze, I vaguely saw Ethan's stunned expression, Mia's face turning as pale as a ghost, and General West rushing toward me with panic in his eyes. My unyielding resolve that day stunned everyone. Later, I became the prime example of a dignified young woman in the upper class. Even the elderly commanders in the military praised me, saying I possessed a fierce spirit and true backbone. The incident shook the entire city. When I fainted, General West immediately said he knew an excellent doctor and personally had people escort me to the most luxurious private hospital. And Ethan, he didn't say a single word. Instead, he and Mia went from one celebration banquet to another, desperately trying to craft the image of a man who only loved Mia. The result, however, only made people see Ethan as cold and heartless. After all, I had just smashed my head open and bled all over my face because of him. Yet he didn't even ask how I was. And as if it were some kind of cosmic timing, the love letters he and Mia had secretly written during their time at the border were suddenly leaked. The content was fiery, shameless, filled with crude, intimate lines that made anyone who read them frown. People began whispering, "These two have no shame at all. Not even a shred of basic decency." As for Ethan's promotion, although he had merit, he ultimately didn't receive the rank he got in my previous life. Anyone perceptive could tell that the higher-ups had already begun questioning his moral conduct. And Mia, she was still proudly calling herself the symbol of daring to love and pursue love, showing off everywhere about how much Ethan adored her. The wives of other officers pretended to congratulate her in public but belittled her behind her back, saying she wasn't worth anything, snatching her sister's fiancé, and then getting pregnant, carrying the stench of a fox spirit. All of this was relayed to me by my best friend, Tracy, while I was recovering at the hospital. "Lisa, you have no idea," Tracy said. "General West has been asking about you nonstop these past few days. He said once you recover, he'll personally visit and bring you supplements. There's nothing harder to resist than something you never had." Suddenly returning as a faint glimmer of hope. That hit to my head that night had been my gamble. If I couldn't succeed, then I'd die trying. And reality proved I had placed my bet correctly. The moment I collapsed into General West's arms and was taken to the hospital was forever etched into his memory. My resilience, my unyielding spirit, was something a man like him, who had enjoyed smooth sailing all his life, had never seen before and could never forget. Well, look who decided to grace us with her presence. "Miss Tate, how busy must you be to finally return home today?" My stepmother sneered the moment I stepped through the door, her eyes scanning me up and down mockingly. Mia walked out next, her belly round and heavy, her expression smug with victory. "Sis, you look so pitiful that I asked Ethan to let you come back and help me take care of the baby. At least you'll have somewhere to stay rather than wandering around outside." I silently looked at both of them. After that severe illness, my body was even weaker, my face pale. The relatives around us had begun whispering, thinking my stepmother and Mia were being far too cruel. Sensing the shift, my stepmother quickly grabbed Mia's arm and pulled her back. "Enough, Mia. You're pregnant. Don't bother with someone like her. It's not worth it." Tracy helped me sit down and leaned close to whisper irritably, "Lisa, why did you come back just to get upset again? Do you know how much General West cares about you? When you were hospitalized, he stayed up all night watching over you. He even monitored the nurses while they changed your four. He didn't trust anyone else with you." I gently shook my head, speaking so softly only the two of us could hear. "Silly girl. A man's affection is something you can never rely on or put your faith in. Have you forgotten? Ethan once treated me the same way. He said he would protect me for life. And look how that turned out." Tracy fell silent. Yes, Ethan had once declared his love endlessly. But in the end, he still betrayed our engagement and chose Mia. I looked out the window, watching snowflakes settle on the winter branches. The corner of my lips lifted slightly into a faint, calm smile. Not long after, news came from the military. They were preparing to present an honorary title to families with outstanding moral conduct, those who had consistently supported national defense efforts. Everyone assumed the recipient would be Mia. After all, Ethan had just accomplished a major mission, and logically, his family should be honored. Mia had deliberately worn a custom-made evening gown, her makeup glamorous as she stood by the door, waiting to receive the announcement. But the officer delivering the message walked straight toward me instead, holding a certificate in his hands. "Comrade Lisa Tate, according to the decision from our superiors, you are hereby awarded the title of Outstanding Military Family Representative. General West personally instructed me to deliver this certificate directly to you." The perfect smile on Mia's face shattered instantly. Her voice shot up several octaves. "Comrade, are you mistaken? I'm Major Cole's fiancé. This award should be mine." The officer frowned, his tone turning noticeably more serious. "Comrade, Major Cole has not registered any marriage with you. According to regulations, you are not his legal family. Furthermore, superiors have clearly stated that Comrade Lisa Tate has spent the past 3 years actively supporting the families of fallen soldiers and promoting the military spirit. She deserves this award both in sentiment and in action." His words were like a direct slap across Mia's face, and the relatives around us couldn't suppress their laughter, lowering their heads to hide their smirks as whispers spread everywhere. Ignoring Mia's darkening expression, the officer turned to me with a polite smile. General West also said that once you recover, he wants to personally hold a ceremony to present this award to you. I knew very well that this officer had no reason to offend Mia, especially with Ethan backing her. So this action was clearly out of respect for General West, helping him return the favor on my behalf. A warm feeling quietly spread through my chest. I accepted the certificate with both hands. Please convey my sincere thanks to the general. Once the officer left, Mia's eyes turned bloodshot as she pointed at me and screamed, "What trick did you use? That award should have been mine." Her mother stomped her feet like a spoiled child demanding a toy. "Mia, sweetheart, if you want that award, tell me and I'll get it back for you." My stepmother could only wrap her arms around Mia, patting her back while gritting her teeth. "It's just a silly award. Once you become the wife of Major Cole, you'll have 100 times more prestige." But Mia had been raised her whole life to take everything from me. She was exactly like a spoiled child who had never been denied anything. She began throwing a tantrum right in the living room, crying, smashing cups, and screaming her lungs out. Everyone quickly stepped back, afraid of getting caught in her chaos. I knew very clearly that soon enough her hysterical behavior would spread through society. And when that happened, no one would believe she was some brave romantic heroine anymore. "Lisa." Ethan called my name, his voice hesitant and awkward. I had just returned with General West from visiting the families of fallen soldiers. The cold still clung to me, and my body felt exhausted. I truly had no energy to deal with him. "What is it?" I asked coolly. "Are you here to demand that I return the Outstanding Family Representative Award for Mia?" Ethan's expression darkened, all of his earlier gentleness gone. "Do you really have to treat me this way? I know you prayed for me for 3 years, supported the families of martyrs. I know everything now. I misunderstood you before. I shouldn't have doubted your feelings. This must all be a misunderstanding between us." He put on a sympathetic face, his tone as if he were granting me mercy. "You've always been faithful to me. I won't fail you anymore. If you agree, you can live with me and Mia and help raise the child with her. I won't mistreat you." I have to admit, I genuinely admired his confidence. He acted as if saying one sentence was enough to make me fall at his feet again. He thought I would throw myself at him in gratitude and cling to him endlessly. I curved my lips into a faint cold smile. "Before deciding that, did you bother asking Mia what she thinks?" Ethan hesitated for a moment but still forced himself to sound confident. "Mia has always been sensible. She won't oppose my decisions. She's not like you." Of course, in the past, because I cared about his career, I had encouraged him to stay focused on his missions and not let emotions distract him. But in his eyes, that made me a calculating, ambitious woman who only wanted to climb higher. I was simply someone who cherished myself, someone who kept proper boundaries with men, no matter how deeply I loved them. But to Ethan, that became proof that I didn't love him enough, that I didn't know how to bow my head for love. He admired my purity and dignity, yet at the same time wanted to break my wings, wanted to keep me by his side like an object, always present at his call, living only around him. I knew very well that Ethan didn't come to me because he had come to his senses or felt any regret. No, it was because lately all he heard around him were people mentioning my name, the 3 years I waited for him, my unwavering loyalty. Meanwhile, his love story with Mia not only failed to receive praise, but was mocked constantly. His pride couldn't handle it, so he wanted to take me back to soothe his wounded ego. "Look everyone, Lisa Tate, the woman you respect so much. With just a wave of my hand, she'll come crawling back just like before." I looked him straight in the eye, my voice cold, leaving him no room. "Whatever existed between us is over. In this lifetime, don't even dream about getting back together. Don't waste your effort." Ethan let out a mocking laugh, his elegant mask completely gone. His voice was sharp and venomous. "If you're not with me, then who will take you? Everyone knows you're the woman I don't want anymore. Who else would dare marry you?" He wasn't wrong. After his recent accomplishments, he stood at the peak. Few in the social circle would dare offend him. No one wanted to go against a rising star like Ethan Cole just for my sake. And as for all the gossip about him and Mia, at most people whispered behind their backs. No one dared openly confront him. At events when many people were present, a young man losing himself in love was never taken seriously. Society always had excuses like even playboys can turn over a new leaf to forgive any fault. But then Lisa Tate is not someone you're allowed to speak so filthily about. A cold, cutting voice came from behind the nearby trees. General Nathan West, usually calm and composed, was truly angry. Anyone with half a brain could see it. This time he wasn't stepping in out of politeness. He meant it. He carried a thick sheepskin coat in his hands and walked straight toward me, draping it over my shoulders. It was the coat I had forgotten in his car after an event. He had come all the way back just to return it. Warmth spread across my shoulders, melting into the freezing winter air. A small safe world wrapped around me. A moment ago, Ethan had been arrogant and loud. Now it was as if someone dumped a bucket of ice water over his head. He stared at me, then at General West, disbelief and panic in his eyes. "So that's how it is," he sneered, his face twisting with fury. "No wonder you pretended to be so heartbroken before. Now you're acting cold as ice. Turns out you were after General West all along." Then he turned toward the general, spitting venom. "General West, I'm warning you. Don't let her fool you. She's two-faced. She'll throw herself at anyone with power. She has no real feelings for anyone." His voice grew more toxic with each word, his eyes bloodshot and crazed, terrifying to look at. But General West didn't budge. He stepped in front of me, shielding me firmly, and said with calm certainty, "I've known Lisa long before any rumors. I know exactly what kind of woman she is. I was worth 100 times more than he ever was." For the first time my heart, frozen by countless wounds, began pounding wildly, almost painfully. For a brief moment I even felt short of breath. That intense confrontation unexpectedly pushed the relationship between me and General West another step forward. Everyone could see he was serious about me. Not long after news spread through the military, General West had officially submitted a marriage application with me. When Mia learned of it, her eyes were overflowing with jealousy and hatred. She finally couldn't hold back anymore. One day when I stepped outside alone, she secretly grabbed a sharp silver hairpin and lunged straight at me, the tip aimed directly at my face. She knew very well that if she ruined my appearance, General West would surely abandon me. Her attack was so fast no one had time to react. Just as the sharp tip was about to reach my cheek, Tracy suddenly threw herself in front of me. The hairpin sliced a deep cut across her face, so deep I could see bone. Blood poured down, soaking the collar of her shirt. I stood frozen, my mind blank, until people around us rushed over, tackling Mia, who had lost all control. Only then did I snap back, quickly pulling out a handkerchief with trembling hands and pressing it against Tracy's wound. "Call an ambulance, please. Someone save her." The scene stabbed into my heart like a blade, tearing open memories from my past life. It had also been a snowy day like this, cold white covering the sky. Back then, after being humiliated publicly by Ethan, I returned home numb and broken. My father was so enraged he grabbed a stick, ready to beat me to death. And Tracy had run out, shielding me with her own body, taking each blow meant for me. She died in my arms, whispering with her last breath, "Don't hurt Lisa. Hit me instead." In this life, I would never let Tracy sacrifice herself for me again. Finally, everyone snapped back into action. Someone grabbed a phone to call for emergency services, while others pinned down Mia, who was thrashing like a madwoman. My stepmother's face had gone pale. This time she no longer defended Mia like before. She rushed forward and slapped her daughter hard across the face. Her voice trembled. "Are you insane? How could you do something like this? That's your sister." She grabbed Mia, shaking her. "Apologize to her right now. It's all my fault for spoiling you. You think you can do anything you want without knowing your place." Her hands were shaking uncontrollably. She didn't dare meet Mia's stunned, disbelieving eyes. Instead, she turned toward me with a desperate look. "Lisa, thank goodness you're unharmed. Your sister was just confused. She didn't mean it. She wasn't thinking straight. You're generous. Could you forgive her this once? I swear I'll teach her properly from now on." But everyone knew the truth. Attacking the woman General West had publicly acknowledged as the one he cared for could never be brushed aside as accidental. This was clearly intentional assault, a serious crime under the law. Yet in my stepmother's mouth, it was as light as a momentary slip. I had no interest in pretending to be kind or gentle. Right now, all I cared about was Tracy's wound, waiting for the ambulance, not even sparing my stepmother or Mia a glance. This time Mia had truly angered General West. The moment he heard what happened, he immediately ordered his men to take her in for investigation. No matter how much my stepmother begged, he didn't relent. Later, I learned the reason Mia had dared to act so recklessly for so long was because Ethan had always shielded her. She naively believed that as long as she was in danger, Ethan would rescue her at all costs. But she never expected that in order to help her, Ethan would pressure his subordinates to kneel and beg on her behalf. His men, already long disgusted with Mia, finally snapped. No one wanted to help someone as blunt and unreasonable as Mia, and one soldier outright refused Ethan's request. Ethan flew into a rage, pulled his training pistol from his belt, and threatened him. Reflexively, the soldier raised his hand to block, and the bullet went straight through his right hand. For a soldier, losing his dominant hand meant losing his entire career. That incident ignited the fury of the entire unit. They couldn't endure it anymore. The whole team joined together and wrote an official report exposing every wrongdoing Ethan and Mia had committed at the border. Mia had disguised herself as a man to secretly follow the unit. Ethan not only failed to stop her but let her share his tent. The two of them tangled with each other day and night, blatantly violating military discipline. While everyone else endured harsh conditions, Mia demanded hot water for bathing every single day, and her meals had to include at least 8 dishes. Meanwhile, the soldiers gnawed on dry rations, and the couple tossed aside untouched food as if it were trash. Ethan even embezzled condolence funds meant for fallen soldiers to buy Mia expensive jewelry and luxury clothing. All the stories that had once been romanticized into some legendary love were, in truth, built on the blood, sweat, and suffering of innocent soldiers. When the truth came out, the public was enraged. People wrote petition after petition demanding a full investigation, asking for justice for the fallen. In the end, Ethan Cole was expelled from the military and sentenced to prison for embezzlement, abuse of power, and violating military laws. Mia was sentenced for disrupting military order and intentional assault. On the day the sentences were carried out, the snow fell heavily again. I went to the site with General West. From afar I saw Ethan being escorted away. His gaze found me through the crowd, filled with regret, but I didn't bother guessing whether he regretted betraying me or simply regretted that his own life had fallen apart. I turned to the man beside me and gave him a playful smile. "You said you'd request a stable job for Tracy. You better keep your word." General West smiled softly and positioned himself between me and the bleak scene behind us. If my wife says so, then her husband naturally obeys. Ethan, once so arrogant and untouchable, now looked like a defeated man crushed under the weight of the law. Every trace of his former pride was gone. He turned toward Mia, also being dragged forward, and screamed like a madman, "This is all your fault. If you hadn't chased and clung to me, how would I end up like this?" But his shouts were drowned out by the crowd's noise as officers pushed him toward the prison transport. Once a celebrated major, he was now nothing but a disheveled criminal. Mia had no arrogance left either. Her hair was a tangled mess, her face pale as paper. Forget the prison sentence. The thing destroying her most was plummeting from paradise into the mud. Her lips trembled but no words came out. She kept her head bowed, unable to look at anyone. I looked away. The dead hold no grudges, and the living must face the consequences of their own wrongdoing. In the distance, sunlight broke through the thick clouds, casting warm spring-like light across the cold snow. I couldn't help but smile. A smile not only spread across my lips but warmed the deepest part of my heart. Being the wife of a general, even the title alone, was far more promising than being the wife of a major. At last, the life that truly belonged to me had finally begun.